Okay, welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I am Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell.
Wow, look who is back.
I'm back.
Jackie is back in town.
It feels good.
Man, we missed you.
Thank you. I missed you guys too.
Just to let everybody know, you've been on maternity leave.
Yep.
Had a little baby girl.
Baby girl, the cutest little baby. I mean, you know, one of the 3 cutest babies in the world. I have the other 2 cutest babies too.
So you have the 3 cutest babies in the entire world.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Her name is Nettie, and she's just adorable.
Yeah. How hard was it to come back to work? And that was earlier this week.
Yeah, you know, a little bit hard. I mean, it's always... a process of you forget the routine a little bit. So like there's that part of it, but then it's also hard to leave your baby at home while you're not with them. So fortunately, my husband is on paternity leave right now.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier because I know he's handling everything.
Yeah, and there's nothing like dad watching over the kids. So I mean,
easy peasy.
That's it's a little kind of alleviates any concern.
It's a good transition period for me.
And then we were talking earlier. Boy, you've really kind of like baptism by fire, so to speak. You jumped back in,
hitting the ground running.
I mean, it's like you were back the first day, and they were like, "What do you got for us today, Susan?"
I was on TV 30 minutes later, and I was like, "Oh gosh."
I mean, come on.
I need to remember how to put on makeup. I didn't do that for 12 weeks.
Oh my! Well, listen, you gave your face a nice little break.
Yeah, right.
A little breathing time.
No kidding.
That's not bad. Listen.
Well, you held down the fort well. I listened to the podcast and you had fun and talked to a lot of cool people.
Yeah, we kept it going, but glad to have you back. Hey, listen, your kids are kiddos right now, so enjoy and embrace the fact that they're just so young and innocent and, just...
Innocent's questionable, but yes, they are young.
and they're full of love. They're not, they're going to get to that time where, you're at school and they're going to go, I can't be seen with you, Mom. I mean,
What age were your kids when you were embarrassing?
I think it was right around junior high.
They just didn't want to be seen with you.
Did not want to be seen with me or my wife.
Did it shatter your heart into a million pieces, or were you like expecting it and prepared for it?
Well, I'll tell you, because I kind of remember when I was that age, I didn't want my parents anywhere near the school ground either. So, and it was funny. We were talking about the exact same story yesterday. Another coworker of ours said that his daughter didn't want him anywhere around. And
just stay away.
Yeah, kind of crushed him. But, we all get there.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to handle that. I can't even fathom.
And then there's a time when they're going to say, Mom, can I borrow the car?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's coming down the pike, Susan, all right? And that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about teenage driving. It's kind of a rite of passage, as they say, for a lot of folks. You remember getting your driver's license?
Yes, I do.
I think I just had a story that occurred in my head. I think you said that you drove the car and it was like in first gear, and you were afraid to stop.
Well, I just didn't want to alert my dad to the problem. So the car was a 1994 Dodge Intrepid, and I loved it a whole bunch because it was my only wheels, right? Like you love anything that will give you independence. And it had some sort of electrical problem, I think, with the vehicle, would not shift out of first gear. But I didn't want to tell my dad, a car guy who could have fixed it, because I was worried that it was going to be too big of a problem to fix, and then I wouldn't have a car. So I just drove a lot of places in first gear.
I mean, pick your poison. You're going to drive a car until it breaks.
I know. Oh, gosh. I mean, hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
Like, what a silly decision I made. But
that is funny.
Now it's great chat over, Thanksgiving dinner when my parents need a good laugh about silly things I did.
And look at us. We're chatting about it.
Here we are.
Did you take some kind of driving course, like a driver's ed?
I did yeah.
You? Okay.
Yep.
Was that required?
It was.
Okay.
Where I grew up, it was required.
Yeah.
So we took the course in a classroom, and then we had to do a certain amount of hours with our permit with an instructor, and a certain amount of hours with a parent or a guardian or something like that.
I just think it's a good idea, because why put somebody behind the wheel of a car if you haven't really had some kind of at least classroom instruction and then, behind the wheel instruction.
It's a giant responsibility.
So today we're talking to Maria Wojtczak. She is the owner of DrivingMBA. How are you doing today, Maria?
Good, thanks.
Hey, do you remember your driver's license when you first got it, and how excited were you?
I remember being excited about wanting to get a license, and so yeah, in my generation, we kind of couldn't wait to get it. So I was excited about it.
Any problems when you first got behind the wheel?
Not that I can think. I do remember being in my, I think it was a Toyota with my brother. Neither one of us had I don't even know if we had a permit or license, and we took the car for a little ride around the neighborhood.
Little joyride.
See, that's what scares me about having children.
Yeah.
Did your kids do anything wild and crazy when they got a license?
Yes. My oldest went out to a high school party.
Oh no.
In the desert.
Oh,
don't even want to know what was going on out there, but I do know when he came back, he had a big hole in the oil pan.
Oh.
And I had a phone call at 1:00 in the morning saying, "Hey, I'm on the side of the road. I don't know what's going on."
Oh.
And then I towed it, and then the mechanic said, "Yeah, he must have hit a big boulder or something coming out of the desert."
Oh no.
So listen, parenting, it is fun.
Yeah, I just saw a story that I can't remember what city it was. It wasn't in Arizona, but an 8-year-old took the parents' car and went to Target.
Oh gosh!
Listen, he wanted a Snickers.
I mean, Target is where they sell Hot Wheels. My kid might do the same thing someday soon. I don't know.
Got to do what you got to do. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit about driving MBA in your school in just a little bit, but tell us about teenage driving. What's the biggest factor or the biggest problem that you see when teenagers get behind the wheel of a car?
That they don't know what they're doing, basically. I mean, and it takes, I think sometimes parents, everyone kind of underestimates what it really takes to prepare an individual, a teenager whose judgment and decision making may not quite be where it needs to be in order to make those kinds of decisions out there. So basically they're not prepared well enough to be out on those roadways that all of us know are pretty crazy these days.
Well, that brings up a good point. I mean, there are a lot of drivers who are very aggressive in this state, right?
Oh,
People drive over the speed limit all the time on the highway.
That would be me.
If you drive the speed limit, you get run over some places.
Well, if you're in the left lane, Susan, you're not a left lane Charlie, are you?
No.
Because
those people drive me crazy.
Yeah, I'm doing the speed limit, but I'm in the left lane. No, you need to get over.
Move.
Okay, you're getting me all.
We're good. We're
getting
good.
me all worked up. What's some of the mistakes? So teenagers, they don't know what they're doing. What's the biggest mistake? I think the first thing that would come to my mind, and you just kind of brought it up, is speeding. They like to go, and they're probably already 20 over the speed limit.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at teenage crash data, typically speed is one of the contributing factors when a teenager has a collision. So, and like you said, moving over to the left lane or the HOV lane is not a great idea, especially for these kids. And I would argue with you a little bit about speed limit, not in the left lane, but certainly in the right to center lanes, that we have to teach them to follow the laws. And oftentimes we don't do that. And so they're out there first day with the license, and they're out there doing 5, 6, 7, 10 miles over the speed limit. Not a good idea.
Scary stuff.
Correct something then, since we're talking about this. It is wrong, not illegal, but it is kind of wrong to drive in the left lane at the speed limit. Is that correct or not?
Well, I don't know that it's wrong to drive at the speed limit. You want to make sure that traffic can move along. So when we teach our students, we certainly teach them to be in the either right to center lanes, not in the left lane, impeding traffic for those people that need to go faster.
Right.
Just a place to pass.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, or you're gonna get run over.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or be
So one story, our audio engineer who can't chime in because he doesn't have a microphone, but one funny story that he had when he was driving and when he was just a little kid with red hair.
Like the 16-year-old legal driver, or was he the 8-year-old going to the Target?
He was the 16-year-old driver.
Okay.
But he went around a curve a little too fast. He had a small car, and he had I think 12 people in his car.
Oh.
It was just too heavy. Is that a big problem? Too many kids in the car.
It is. When I've been looking at teenage crash data, passengers are the number one distraction for a newly licensed teenager. So our recommendation to parents is for the first year of driving that they should be driving by themselves because they're still building skill. And so having friends in their vehicle can create a situation where they're goaded to do things that they probably know they shouldn't be doing or going places that they've been told they can't go. And so it's just really important for them to be able to continue to drive without that huge distraction of having friends in the car. And kids don't want to hear that. They just don't want to hear that.
Yeah. We're in Arizona, so let's talk about the Arizona rules when it comes to teenage driving. Let's say there's parents out there who have a son or daughter, and they're just itching to drive because they're 15. What kind of things do the parents have to go through along with their teenager to get them ready? Is school required? How much does it cost? Do you get a permit first? What's the deal with that?
Well, here in the state of Arizona, a teenager is eligible for their permit when they turn 15 and a half. So no, there is no driver training requirements here in the state, which is unfortunate. They're required to, so they need to get a permit. They can do it at home online. So a parent needs to register them. They can do a couple of practice tests, then they can go in and take the test. They can use the book. So unfortunately, what happens is they get their permit, but they don't really have a good understanding of those rules of the road. Okay, because they've kind of gone in one ear, out the other. They passed the test, they got what they needed.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're excited. I mean, they're like, listen, leave me alone, mom and dad. I want to go cruise around and show everybody how cool I am.
So then, and then they're required to go to do 30 hours of driving with their parents, 10 of which to be at night. But there's no logging of that. So there's no check and balance on that. And I will be honest, I know for a fact there are kids out there that have less than 30 hours of driving under their belt, and they've got a license because they've gone to the MVD and taken a test that is relatively easy to pass.
So take us to that first time that you are a parent going out with your 15-and-a-half-year-old who just got the permit. What's the conversation that we should be having before that kid is getting behind the wheel? And what's the conversation when they are physically behind the wheel and we're ready to take off, hit the gas pedal for that very first time?
I mean, the first thing you should do is sit down and talk about, okay, we're gonna start practice driving, and I need you to listen to my commands, and that if you don't agree with it, we can either pull over and have a conversation, but do not. I'm sorry, that's my dog behind me, but do not engage in an argument with me, And so it's kind of set the stage, frame the conversation, and say. And the other thing I tell our parents is, think of this as an opportunity for you to spend some quality time with your teenager. It's literally one of the last life skills that we really impart to them before they become what's considered, a young adult, right? And so kind of reframing that, because a lot of times parents go, I got to get out there and drive with my teenager, and they don't love that idea.
I think probably the listening on the part of the teenager is one of the biggest things, because they probably tune out the parent and they're just wanting to drive and let's just go. I remember I had a problem with my two boys. I'm sitting there trying to talk to them, and I felt like they weren't listening. They were too excited.
Well, so maybe it's something you can start way before that, then maybe when they're younger, you're talking through why I'm waiting to turn left here, or why, maybe that conversation starts way earlier. So you've got their captive attention when they're 10.
That's a great idea. I mean, tell us about that, Maria. I mean, even before the kid gets in, it's nothing wrong with giving a little 101 while you're driving and your teen is in the passenger seat.
Even with your kid in the car seat in the back, start talking about, and so that they understand what red, yellow, green means. So those kinds of things, simple things like that. And then as they're approaching, the 15 age, start to talk about what you're noticing, and start to talk about the things that you're seeing and how and why, as you said, Susan, why you're stopping, how you're scanning, what you're looking for. So that's all an opportunity for you to start to prepare them to be out there and start to think about what it's going to be like when they're behind the wheel.
We're going to get to your school in just a moment, but what is the general cost for a driver's education course? And again, it's not required here in Arizona, but it's a good idea. What's the cost average for parents out there?
It varies. It varies. So I would say probably, I don't think you probably can get something around $400 or $500. I'm going to be honest, we're more expensive, but we have a very robust process that we use to prepare a teenager to be out there. So it really depends. If you looked at my website, I have programs that are called the master's program, the bachelor's program, and the associate's program. It really depends on how much education and training you want your student to have before they're out on the roadways.
If you do make that investment and decide to pay for classes that aren't required, does that help out with insurance or anything like that? I mean, there are, if you're adding a teenager onto your insurance policy, the cost is going to skyrocket. They could be the best driver in the world, but they're a risky driver to an insurance company.
Absolutely. When they see teenager, all they see is risk, 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 and more risk. So yeah, definitely, driver training, typically any kind of program will provide some incentive. But what I also tell parents is talk to your agents early in the process, because sometimes they have their own programs. Sometimes they'll want you to log, they'll have videos or things like that they want you to do. So definitely do your research, because you're right. It can be over a 50% increase on your policy once you put a teenager on it.
Yeah. Driving classes, I mean, it would only help, you would think, with the cost of insurance. Also make your kids have good grades, because I know good grades, A's and B's, there's discounts with insurance premiums on that as well. Tell us a little bit about your driving school now. What are we looking at? And I think you have some high-tech stuff, like some electronic demos or something, without the kids actually getting in the car.
Well, we have simulation labs. So we have a driving fundamentals simulation lab where student that has little to no driving experience, where they're literally they're in a cab, and it's instructor led. It's not just put a student on a machine and let them drive around. So they're learning how to drive, everything from hand and foot control, steering control, getting on and off of roadways, making turns, interacting with traffic, everything that you would be doing with them out on the road. They're doing that in a safe and controlled environment. So they're literally building skill before we have to get out there. And then once they complete that, then we start to take them on the road, transfer what they've learned in that lab, and we continue to build on those same objectives.
Have they ever had an accident in the simulator?
Oh, many times.
What do they do? Are they not stopping on time, or?
Yeah, I mean, it'll stop, and the screen shows it, because they've got screens around them, so it'll show a crash. In the fundamentals lab, we also have a defensive driving lab, so they're a little more advanced. So we're teaching them, what do you do if someone's coming at you head on, for example, or red light runners. State of Arizona is #1 in red light running. So how do you really scan an intersection, making sure you're looking left, center, right, left again, and making sure you're using your neck muscles and not relying on peripheral vision, skid control. We can put them in all these kinds of situations. They're going to crash. We can replay and say, okay, what could we have done differently in that situation? How could you have avoided that collision?
I think one of the biggest things people can do is when the light turns green, before you go, look left, look right. Because so many times I see people zip through, and I'm
this morning, coming out of my neighborhood at 5 a.m., somebody ran a red light, and if I wouldn't have been paying attention, I would have gotten
T-boned
right there.
I mean,
5 a.m.
I'm probably overprotective, but I mean, it just happened the other day to where I looked to the right, and this guy was just barreling through, and like you, I would have gotten hit had I not looked. So that's a biggie.
I think we should get you in the simulator. I want to see how you do.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Put it on the highest skill level and see if Gary can master it.
Maria, can you make that happen? I'm going to have to come over there and see how well I do.
Come on by anytime.
That is awesome. What's the prices over there? How long do the classes last, and how much?
Okay, so as I said, we've got a very robust program. Everything that we do, the driving fundamentals, on road, and if any driving school does 10 hours of on-road instruction, we can actually road test the student. So if they pass the test, and it can be waived at the motor vehicle department. And then the defensive driving, I also have online courses. And at my school, if you want us to road test your student, you actually have to go through a coaching course with me. I do a Zoom coaching course with parents, so that to provide them information about teenage driving, to help them be better coaches when they're out there. So our process is to really engage the parents, because what I tell parents is you can't just drop them off and we're going to pop out a good driver. It's not the way this happens. It requires good skill base, and so we're responsible for teaching them the good habits, the skills, the rules of the road, helping them develop the attitude. And the parents' job is to continue to reinforce that and do the practice that's required for them to build skill.
So your company's big on teenagers. As far as like Susan, she's an adult and she likes to speed. So when she gets
not as much as Gary does, though.
when she gets a speeding ticket, can she come to your company and take the classes to get the ticket dismissed, which is allowed by some courts here?
Yeah, it is. We're not one of those schools that does that, but there are schools that do that. And you can, I'm pretty sure sometimes you can also do those online as well.
If you just jinxed me and I get a speeding ticket this afternoon heading home from work, I'm going to be so mad at you, Gary.
Just keep the lead foot off the pedal.
I do not drive differently than anybody else in Arizona.
Susan,
that's not a good thing to say, Susan.
Susan, leave the driving to the professionals.
Okay? Yeah, we're going to see you crash a whole bunch on a simulator. Stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned.
We're going to do that, and I'll let everybody know how we did. Hey, Maria, listen, great conversation, fun talk, and tell us a little bit about DrivingMBA. If people want to find out more information, tell us a website and all that good stuff.
You can find us on drivingmba.com. We have 2 locations, one in Scottsdale and one in Glendale. And our number is 480-948-1648. We have enrollment counselors. So if you call, talk to us a little bit about your teenager, and then we'll make a recommendation about what might best fit them and your family's needs.
Sounds really good. Before I leave, I'm going to ask you a little question. When's the last time you had a collision?
Myself, personally?
Yes.
I haven't had one. I've never been in a collision.
Ooh.
Gary's trying to jinx you too.
What
is this?
I am not putting this out in the. I'm not putting this out in the universe.
Everybody, we have knocked on all the wood we can. No, we're not going to get any more guests ever on this podcast.
Oh boy, everybody, safe driving and safe travels. And Maria, thank you for being on the On Your Side podcast. Okay.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day, guys.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can. Send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock. And every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.